Hello everyone, welcome to unit number 5 of digital innovation. This time we're going to be talking about choosing innovation projects. What are going to be the factors that help us to choose one project? So first of all, we're going to be talking about, let's jump to the first thing. We're going to be talking about the development budget. So we need to understand that different industries and different companies as well, they have different budgets that they will assign to all their innovations or the projects that they will be doing. So in this case, we have to understand that there's some industries nowadays, for example, the technology industry, tech companies, they spend a lot of their budget. Pharmaceutical companies, they spend a lot because they know that for them to keep themselves on the market means that they have to innovate very quickly, constantly. Those cycles that they go are very short, so they know that whatever innovation that they have is going to last for very, very little time. In the case, for example, of Google, we can see that actually they have a lot of projects. Some of them are even failed, some of them are successful, but out of the range of innovations that they have, some of them are discarded. Why? Because they are already out of time, or simply because they do not fulfill the whole business strategy that they have. But again, everything goes together with the budget that they have to be spending. Like I said, technology industries spend a lot. Is a very high, very intensive industry in terms of assigning how much of the yearly budget is gonna be spent on innovation projects and everything like that. So first of all, we have to think of a which well, let me go back a little bit. We have to think of what kind of method are we gonna be using in order to choose an innovation project. So first of all, we can think of quantitative, which is gonna be we're gonna be looking at it more in terms of numbers, in terms of finance. What really can this project bring to us in terms of money? How much we're gonna lose and how much we need? Or are we going to be looking for qualitative methods, which is a little bit more on asking ourselves a couple questions, analyzing the situation, and more of like understanding what are the benefits for the consumer, what are our internal capabilities, how much this will take, and how much it will cost. Not so much in numbers, but whether we can really do it, whether we have those capabilities or not, and of course we have combined methods. So let's go a little bit more into each one of them. So for quantitative methods, first of all, let's choose at the net present value and the internal rate of return. So for the net present value, we just have a calculation that says, okay, how much we're going to spend now, but that doesn't matter now, it matters in the future, because in the end we have other risks affecting us, like for example inflation or devaluation or some currency factors that can affect in the future. Maybe by the time, I mean, we have a project that has a span of 10 15 years, we're spending a lot of money now, but when we look down the road with inflation, perhaps it's not that much. And perhaps when we look at the profit that is going to be generating year by year, then the story is going to be different and we will look more positive at it. We may say that sounds like a lot of money now, but down the road, with the cash flows that we have every single year, according to estimated profits that we can do, and also, like I said, inflation, we can say, well, it's not a bad idea, and then we go ahead for that, right? I mean, at least financially, we know that things can work. Now, sorry, on the other hand, also we have the internal rate of return. Rate of return is slightly different. Yes, we also calculate the net present value, which means how much is actually the cost divided into periods down the road, but what we discount is inflation or other external risks that can affect already. So that means we're going to be focusing more internally in how much we're going to spend, and that's all. We're not going to be looking at anything else outside that could change already or over time that can change what we're spending. We will be focusing more on the projection of our own budget. So now let's go to the qualitative methods. So in this case, qualitative methods is a different way of thinking. Rather than just thinking of the money, we have to ask ourselves couple questions. Well, not a couple, but in order to start a project first, in order to discuss whether this project can make sense or not, we need to look at various different things. So let's first of all, let's look at where we're doing qualitative methods. Like I said, is more of understanding and doing, well, we can say it as a market research, where we, for example, we look first of all at the customer. How is the market nowadays? In the case of the innovation that we're looking, or the project that we're looking at, right? How are consumers really willing to accept it? Whether the market is ready already for this innovation or not yet. In the case, for example, of the flip phones, many of the flip phone, the market is not ready for it because they still think that this product is very fragile, that there's still some rejection to it, right? And the same thing as how the consumer is using that product. So there's still some rejection, but again, they're early movers. Samsung is an early mover, and somehow they will have the benefit of that. So again, we have to think, we have to explore the consumer, whether also this product that we're launching has any compatibility with the products that we already have, where there is an incremental innovation, and also we can use some of the technology that we previously had, or we have to start from zero and scratch and remove all the innovation that we already had, or all the components that we already have developed. Again, this could be a radical innovation, and that also breaks already our cycle. Finally, we have to think of the distribution and pricing, which is how are we gonna distribute this product, what is gonna be the role of it, and how much we're gonna price it. Sometimes if this product is too innovative, has a lot of research involved, has a lot of new methods, a new infrastructure, a lot of new components, and that means the pricing is gonna be expensive. So we go back again to the market. Are they really willing to spend that money on it or not? Right? And here you're gonna see, for example, the case that I will explain into the slides, which is the Under Armour example. No, they already understand that people is looking for fitness products, and they know that they have, for example, the capabilities of developing technology. They don't have them. So that is when they come together with Samsung. Okay, Samsung, you don't know much about performance in terms of sports. I don't know much in terms of a performance in terms of technology. So we have to do a collaboration there, right? So you use my name because in the end, when people think of sports, they don't really think of Samsung. They say, well, we'll think of Under Armour, and the same backwards, right? So in this case, probably the reception of the product is going to be much better because of the name that they are using in here, right? And again, this helps a little bit to understand whether should we go for, in this case, Under Armour, should we go and venture with Samsung for this kind of innovation, for this kind of project? Yes, sounds good, because it has a win-win situation for both of us, right? Very good. So now let's go to the role of the capabilities. So in the role of the capabilities, we have to understand, we have to ask ourselves a lot of questions in terms whether how capable are we doing of carrying out the project. We may be very ambitious, we may have a lot of ideas, a lot of innovations, but the problem is that we don't have those resources, right? We are missing budget, we are missing knowledge, we're missing information, and there's a lot of gaps in there that we don't have, or even in the manufacturing, we don't have that ability to do it, right? So is there a way that we can overcome that by, perhaps if we don't have those things, we do a collaboration with another company? Or that perhaps if we financially we don't have it, can we search for loans? Or then we go back again to the quantitative, can we really do it or not? Then second thing, we have to think of the competitors' capabilities, which is, are other companies stronger than us? And that is the case, for example, for smaller companies. They think about it twice and they say, well, we have this issue, we have a very innovative project, so we try to run it with very little capital and see how it goes, or we develop as much as we can, we develop a prototype and then we sell it. And that is what happens with a lot of applications nowadays, that they start to develop very smart and very good applications, and then once they become successful, then larger companies acquire them. The case of Instagram, for example, a good innovation, which was a simplified version of Instagram, simplified version, well, a more graphical version of Twitter, then of course it was very successful, and that's when Facebook acquired it. So in this case, like I said, the competitors' capabilities were stronger at that time, but they have a supreme product at that time, and that helped them very well, right? And lastly, we think of the future capabilities. We have been discussing, for example, Tesla a little bit before, and this is Tesla or the other one, Peloton, for the bicycles. Let's talk about a little bit about Peloton and future capabilities. Peloton understands that uh, the fitness industry has a lot of competitors, and it is not easy to maintain themselves in that market. So they have marketed themselves more as a tech company rather than as a fitness company. So what they're trying to do is to change a little bit and invest a little bit more in technology, and what kind of technology could be helpful for doing exercising, gears as well, and also trying to tag into social media, and somehow is a very well blended product. Okay, so in this case, that is when they're thinking we don't have, actually when they started they didn't have a lot of capabilities, as maybe some of you did read in the previous unit. You can see that some of them, they didn't have the production of the bicycles, they didn't have the rights of the music, and what they did is, let's move into the direction of what could we possibly achieve in the future. So they started to run, they had a good product, they developed their capabilities, they still had missing something, and when they had all the financial power, they started to cover up for those capabilities that they knew that they were lacking. Okay. In this case, in the unit, I'm showing, for example, the role of capabilities of Pirelli for the performance of tires. They have a very ambitious project, which is like smart tires, and which actually they are already doing, but for transportation purposes. So they are developing this software that tells uh, more in real life what is the performance of a tire and when should it be changed and so on, and that helps a lot, for example, for transportation companies. But again, it's a very ambitious project, because in the end we have to understand that Pirelli doesn't have the capabilities of technology. They have the technology when it comes to the tire itself. So that is when they need cooperation with external companies that will be looking more into the technology area than compared to that. Now here, when we look at, for example, at the Pirelli performance of tires, they have been testing their tires, or I mean, the degradation of tires through car racing. Much of the car racing, what they do is they use their tires and they check through sensors and some other factors what is the degradation of the tires. So somehow they have some sort of knowledge, but for them to pursue a larger product, a larger project, then they will have to think that they need a strategic alliance with a tech company. Right? Very good. So now let's go to the project time and cost considerations. And it's taking some time. Maybe I'll tell you a joke in the meantime. I know my computer is old and sometimes it freezes. Sorry about that. So anyways, timing and cost factors. So in this case, for example, we have in the slides I'm mentioning the example of digital twin cities, but in this case, let me bring some value in a different way. In the race of smartphones and operational systems, well, we know that Apple has its iOS and Android also developed this system. But the case of Nokia is very interesting in this case when it comes to choosing a project. Not so much in terms of capabilities, because like I said, when we talk about capabilities, we can say that Nokia at that time, 20 years ago, they were a monster. They really had all the financial power, they really had all the resources, and the internet capabilities were there in order for them to compete with anyone, with Apple at that time, or with Microsoft, or with any other. So here comes the issue. The issue is that Nokia became very ambitious when developing their own operational system for their phones. So yes, they developed smartphones, but The problem was the operational system. So what do we do? What kind of projects should we pursue? Shall we do our own operational system, or shall we rely on someone else, which at the time Android approached them and say, Nokia, do you want to use Android as your operational system? Nokia refused and said, no, we have the ability, we have the resources, we understand that consumers like our products the way they are, they trust us. So when it comes to the consumer role of the consumer, the acceptance of that brand already was there. When we're talking at the internal capabilities, they had them, but the problem was the timing and the cost. Timing, they didn't have the time because they already had the pressure of Android and they already had the pressure of iOS from Apple. So they had those pressures in terms of time. They didn't have much time. Then the cost factors started to get in as well. They developed one product on one operational software. Didn't work too well. They had to scrap it off and start one more time, and that developed a lot of cost. On top of that, already the time that they didn't have because they were not selling any more units, or the decrease of the units was massive as compared to what people were spending on smartphones. So in that case, although they decided to pursue to develop their own product, in the end it didn't work at all, and actually that brought Nokia to what is today, nothing. So again, in this case, we need to consider whether these products are worth pursue. They had the idea that actually if the operational system would works, that they could probably have a very good product, but in the end it didn't work that well. It even went worse because they failed 2 times in developing the product, and they end up using the Microsoft operational system, which was complete rubbish. So in the end, it cost them the life of the company. So you see how important it is to choose properly what product we're going to pursue. And now finally we go to combined methods, which is actually the reality. The reality is that companies do not go just for financial, they don't go just for asking themselves questions. They do a market research with qualitative data and quantitative data, and also the same thing financially. They assess whether it's a good decision or not, and then they calculate the profit over time, losses over time. Again, the losses over time are very important because some of the technology sometimes it takes some time to pick up. Sometimes it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years to pick up, or the consumer acceptance of that technology takes some time, and we need to consider that because there's small companies that cannot absorb 2 or 3 years of losses. Yeah, massive companies, they can do it, they can afford it, they can have failed products, and that's not a big issue, but not for small products. So that is where again calculating the quantitative is important. And like I said, the market research which tell us a little bit more of whether the consumer really wants that product or not, and how are they feeling towards it. Okay, very good. So with that, we're done with unit number 5. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, again, like I was saying the last time, if you have any questions, just contact me through the Kakao Talk. I think it's the fastest way because sometimes checking eCampus takes me more time than actually just replying you as quickly as possible. Thank you so much. Stay healthy, and well, here's good night. So I'll say good night to you. Bye bye.